Joining us this morning, House Majority Leader Eric Cantor joins us from the Hill. Leader Cantor, good to see you again. Good morning.
Good morning.
You want to jump right into the loophole discussion?
Sure.
The revenues raised from closing any loopholes go to deficit reduction or go to financing additional tax cuts?
Well, what I said yesterday, Carl, was in response to what the president had insinuated was the holdup on all the talks. Seems to me that that corporate jet loophole is a priority for the president, but it's not what hung up the talks thus far. What has gotten in the way of the talks is a desire on the part of the president and his party to raise taxes on small business people and entrepreneurs, something we need not do, because what we need is for them to get back in the game to create jobs. So my response to that was, fine, Mr. President, if it's important to you to plug a corporate loophole or preference, we're all for that, because we've said we need to simplify the code, we need to bring down rates, and we need overall tax reform.
Right.
But if you want to talk about loopholes, we're not for increasing taxes, so there needs to be an offsetting tax cut somewhere else.
Well, if the revenue raised from closing a loophole doesn't go to help the deficit picture, then that seems like an admission that, well, gosh, this corporate jet thing sort of plays well politically, and somehow we Republicans need to jump on board.
Well, I mean, the question is this: where are we going to come together in a compromise here? And where we have seen over the last 6.5, 7 weeks is a blueprint that's been put in place, so-called Biden talks, which spells out over $2 trillion in savings. And if Republicans are going to come to the table and actually vote to increase the nation's credit limit, what we believe our duty is to begin to get the fiscal house in order and get the spending problem straight. So we've identified these cuts along with the other side, and believe it's important for us not to raise taxes right now while you've got such an ailing economy. Right.
So, any movement in the loophole picture does not change your stance, that you're not adjusting your stance on taxes whatsoever?
No, absolutely not. How is it that you think that raising taxes right now is going to help people get back to work? It just is counterintuitive.
Do you believe that something significant happened in the past few days between the Speaker and the President? Do you think somehow this impasse has changed, has loosened?
Well, you know, I do believe that we're going to go into the meeting at the White House today, and we're going to hear from the president the options that are on the table. And if the president is interested in doing entitlement reform, if he's interested in actually engaging in tax reform that we can become more competitive as a country and lower rates, I'm all for that. But I'm not for raising taxes. And I think at the end of the day, we've got to keep our eyes squarely focused on the imperative right now, which is to get people back to work and grow this economy.
Eric, if let's say you go and the president gives you $4 trillion in tax cuts and gives you everything you want, and all of a sudden looks really centrist, and you get all the things that you want, and it increases his elections twofold, his election prospects for 2012 twofold. Is you going to go with it then, or are you going to find something else that you don't like?
Joe, the priority should be what's good for this country and to get people back to work. Set aside who gets credit, who gets electoral advantage on that. Right now, too many people out of work. I mean, I know we've talked before about the threat to the competitiveness of America. We've got to be focused and all together about that. I'm hopeful we can come in and say, sure, let's do $4 trillion in cuts.
It's an ugly business there. You know as well as I do down there. So you're willing to give him what would be a big victory with this, damn the torpedoes, come what may. Even if it increases, it makes him look centrist, makes him look like a leader.
But we're not for raising taxes. I mean, let's get that straight. You know, if there is a proposal to increase revenues outside of the potential we can increase them for more economic growth, I'm not for that. I don't think that the Republicans in Congress are for that. And that really is where the difference has been. That's why we walked out of the Biden talks. The Vice President has known where I've been all along throughout that 6 or 7 week period, is that if they insist on hanging on to these political messages on these corporate jet loopholes and the rest that frankly amount to $3 billion in savings over 10 years when we're talking over $2 trillion of savings, fine. But we need offsetting tax cuts somewhere else. We're not raising taxes on people that we expect to get back in the game and create jobs.
Congressman, I understand the idea of raising taxes when you're trying to get the economy to grow, but isn't it just the same if we cut back aggressively on spending right now? Don't they both have fiscal multiplier effects that have the same result, hold back the recovery?
Well, I mean, let's remember where we've been over the last 2 years. This theory of flushing out dollars from Washington to grow the economy has failed. Look at where the stimulus has gotten us. It basically has gotten us over $800 billion in debt from that very vote that the Democrats passed, and with no effect in terms of delivering on their promise that they were going to keep unemployment at 8% or lower. We're over 9% now officially. So I think we've been there, done that. So let's try and address the problem here. The problem is spending, and we have on the table of trillions of dollars of spending cuts identified that I believe we can both sides get their arms around and go forward with that in order to increase the credit limit. I mean, people in this country are expecting us to deliver, yes, on spending cuts, but also yes on changing this system. That they don't want to see taxpayer dollars spent like they've been spent before. They want us to demonstrate that things have changed and that we are going to manage their taxpayer dollars the same way they would.
What do you tell a hedge fund manager today who may be worried about paying carried interest?
Well, I have been very outspoken on the difference between wage income and capital income as far as our tax code is concerned. We, in my opinion, are an economy based on calculated risk and investors who are willing to put capital at risk. If there is capital at risk, if there is an underlying asset or ownership in an asset, to me that's risk-based investment, that's risk capital, and should be treated as such. If it's wage income somehow disguised as capital income, fine, there's a discussion to be had here. But I think most people who are small businesses, who are engaged in partnerships, who take risks, ought to have some reward so that we can grow this economy. So I'm very much in opposition to the proposal by the White House to get rid of the distinction between ordinary income and capital income in the situation of partnerships.
That's being touted as one thing that potentially could be agreed to by both sides. You don't feel that way.
No, and I think, again, this is all about political theater here. And let's get down to basics here. What do we believe helps to grow this economy? It's not just, perhaps the hedge fund managers or private equity individuals in New York or elsewhere. It's about the small business real estate partnership that's out there relying on the distinction and the incentive inherent in the tax code when you take a risk, when you put capital to work, and the outcome is dependent upon whether that deal works or not. Mm-hmm. It's important, I think, to distinguish that from wage income, which should be ordinary income.
Leader Cantor, you saw that Brooks piece, right? David Brooks?
Uh-huh.
Any merit to that? I mean, let's say that you got $4 trillion in it. I don't know. Somewhere, somehow, taxes are raised on somebody, $1 a year. I mean, would that be enough just on principle to reject some? Does he have a point that you're cutting off, the Republicans are cutting off their nose to spite their face by being so ideological about not raising any revenue? Did you see any point to what he said yesterday, or do you just reject the whole contention?
Joe, I don't think we're being ideological. I think we're being practical here. Who thinks that raising taxes in a sputtering economy is a good idea? But if you can get so many great things, if you could get the president, I know some Republican leadership said, well, the president is at $1 trillion, not $4 trillion. So don't disguise the real issue here. But what if you did get a lot of what you wanted? Reagan used to say get 80%. Isn't there something where you get such a good deal that you're willing to give something so he can go back to his base and say, I was able to get this? Or look, that's all theory talk, Joe. Let's get down to practice here. What the other side wants to do is the same that they wanted to do prior to the election last November, and that is they want to raise taxes on small business people and individuals in this country. That's what they want. That's why the Biden talks blew up. That's why there's such a difference right now. We don't believe that that's a good thing to do. We got to focus first on where small business people and families focus when they're in over their heads, and that is to cut spending. You can't manage when you are borrowing over 40 cents of every dollar you spend. You can't keep spending money you don't have. Let's fix the problem and then get the economic engine of this country growing again that will actually contribute greatly to managing down the debt and deficit.
Leader Cantor, thanks for your time. Always good to talk to you. Be watching closely today. Again, the meeting with the leader and several others with the president today talking about